We're continuing our discussion with Costa Lapavitsas about the crisis in Greece post-referendum, where 61% of Greeks who voted said no to the austerity package proposed by Europe. And joining us again now from his constituency in Greek Macedonia, that's northern Greece, is Costa Lapavitsas. He's a professor of economics at the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies, and he co-authored the book Against the Troika with Heiner Flassbeck. Thanks for joining us again, Kostas.
Nice to be with you.
The stock markets are not going crazy, at least not as of the moment we're doing this interview. We hear talk, the effect on the euro has been factored in already. There doesn't seem to be a great alarm about possible contagion, as they call it, the ripple effect across finance around the world. What do you make of the significance of the defaults, and if there is no deal? And do you think part of this, and I know it doesn't seem to have had that much attention, but I can't imagine the U.S. government and the Fed are just sitting there. Has the Fed decided they're simply going to back the euro and let Greece take its punishment or its lesson?
I don't know what the Fed are doing, but the U.S. government certainly has been very heavily involved because they're worried about the economic consequences, but also the geopolitical consequences. They're very concerned about that. There is a lot of geopolitics in this, to do with Russia, to do with China, to do with the Eastern Mediterranean generally, and obviously the US government is deeply concerned about this. Now, in terms of the markets, I've never said that Greek chaos or Greek unrest was likely to cause a disaster in global markets now. This would have happened in 2010. That was the time when Greece could really have wielded a lot of power in its interests, because the global banks were exposed to Greece, because the European Union was not prepared for crisis and so on. But Greece didn't. It imposed the terrible situation on its own people, and it allowed the lenders to strengthen their own position. So things are very different now. The Greek banks are not connected to the European banking system very heavily. European banks are not exposed to Greek debt. So even if Greece defaults or even if it exits the euro, the immediate impact will not be that dramatic. But the moral impact will be very great, because don't forget, the euro is supposed to be an irreversible currency. If Greece defaults and makes its way to the exit eventually, it will have been shown that the euro is very much reversible. Considering that the euro is a sick currency, the European Monetary Union is a diseased union, then that would be a very powerful event with demonstration effects down the line.
So in this moment now, the negotiations presumably start again, I think, on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, given when we're doing this interview. Or I think there's going to be a new proposal. The Greek government's going to make a new proposal on Tuesday, and I guess that begins some more negotiations. Assuming that the Troika, the European finance, doesn't back up significantly, it seems there really is only this two choices: either major concessions on the part of the Greek government in spite of this vote. But given that vote, it seems that, if the European finance doesn't move, and I don't see why they're going to now, as I said in part one, some of the people in those circles are saying it's time to teach Greece its lesson. Then what else is there except to start at least a parallel currency, if not get out altogether of the euro?
Not much. I don't expect the lenders to back down, because there is very little that's new on the table. The lenders don't respect democracy anyway, and the lenders will find themselves in a very weak political position if they're seen to back down to Greek demands now. The Portuguese might want a better deal than the Spaniards, and so on. So I don't expect the lenders to show much flexibility now. The Greek government will find it very hard to back down, because the very strong vote for the no creates its own dynamic. No government will be able to renege on that. So draw your own conclusions. We're heading towards major events in Greek and European history.
Just to flesh out some of the things you said in part one of this interview, you had three things, sort of radical measures the Syriza government should do. It started with nationalizing the banks. Just flesh that out a bit. What does that look like?
Greek banks at the moment have got majority public ownership, share ownership. But their shares are not common stock, and therefore they haven't got voting rights. So we've got the charade here, sham, whereby the capital of the banks is owned by the public, overwhelmingly, but the management is basically private, and the people who run the banks are basically the people who ruin the banks, by and large. These people don't see eye to eye with the government, and they're not making it easier for the government to implement its own policy. So what we need immediately is intervention and a normalization of the operations of the banks to the degree to which it can be normalized. Obviously, there's very little liquidity, but there's no reason why the banks could not start doing more banking transactions, even behind closed doors. There is no reason why the banks could not facilitate some fairly normal economic activity, even if there are capital controls and banking controls. So we need to nationalize the banks effectively, and we need to operate very quickly to start having some banking activity in the economy once again, to unblock the markets.
And what do they do? What happens in the short term? I heard on the radio last night that some of the ATM machines at the banks where people are supposed to be able to get their 60 euros a day out are out of euros. Like the banks, the actual machines and banks are running out of actual cash.
Yeah, cash is a big problem. It's unfortunate. The state and Syriza should have been better prepared. But such is life. This was done when the banknote stock within the banks was very low. The European Union is not providing new banknotes. We will know what Mr. Draghi will do today of the European Central Bank. If that's the situation, then the state needs to start paying with other means of payment, denominated in euros maybe. Not banknotes, which we cannot create, but other means of payment. That's an option.
But will people, I mean, people have to have faith in whatever the document is, and if it's in euros and people think, well, there won't be any more euros, then what effect will the documents have?
Obviously, that's a problematic situation. That's exactly why you need to nationalize the banks, and that's why you need to prepare the economy for a difficult ride. That's what I'm telling you. This is not an easy time. The Greek people have said no. That means that they are ready for whatever is going to come their way. Well, that's what's going to come their way, probably. They've got to be ready for that.
Well, again, so that comes back to the second point, which is the media. There's been such a propaganda war, and it's really remarkable how ineffective the private media was in swaying the vote over to the yes side. It's really remarkable. I don't know another country where you've had such a media barrage and people were not taken in by it. But from what you said last time, one, there's the issue of the money the private media owes the government. Does that mean if they don't pay that you would then close them down?
What I do know for sure is that the Greek people want a settlement of the media situation at the moment. They detest the current regime. They detest the fact that the media is in the hands of a small group of oligarchs who want the old regime to come back. They are desperate for a change, and the anger is palpable. So there are ways of dealing with the legal issues, and they should be mobilized very quickly. That doesn't mean shutting down these stations, but if they've got obligations, they should be called upon to pay them.
I mean, and one thing you could do with the payments, I suppose, is strengthen the public broadcaster.
That goes without saying. The public broadcaster must be strengthened immediately. The public broadcaster is very important right now. So, but in addition to that, the Greek people want action to be taken with regard to the oligarchs, the small band of rich people who control big business in Greece, who are perceived to be corrupt, very closely connected to the state, taking advantage of public procurement and enriching themselves in all sorts of devious ways. The Greek people want action there, and Syriza has been very slow.
Do you or does the Greek government know how many euros the Greek elite is sitting on? I mean, in Greek banks, one would think there's a lot of euros that belong to the oligarchs that you're talking about.
I don't know. The oligarchs will have moved a lot of their money out of the country. They've been very good at that. But my sense is that if one started probing into the banking system properly, with a good group of civil servants, with a lot of power to open the bank books, because that's what's missing. That's what proper nationalization means. I am sure that we will discover even banknotes that are not used. So and therefore we'll be able to put them in the ATMs for a period. We need to take over the banks as quickly as possible. That's priority. Take over the banks, open the books, see what the bankers have been doing, because I'm sure that the bankers are the enemy of this government, and I'm sure that they're not telling the truth. That's absolute priority, and we need to move quickly in the coming days. It's a matter of survival now.
Thanks very much for joining us, Kostas.
Thank you very much, Paul, and I hope to be able to talk to you again with better news from Greece.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.